So welcome back. Let's talk about team communication and collective intelligence. So Dr. Carroll, what the heck are you talking about? So we've talked a lot about team stuff. Now we're into chapter 6. And so chapter 6, we're going to talk about, like I said, in chapter 6, we're about to talk about team collective performance. And this is quite interesting because I think that a lot of times people get off base with communication and performance. And so collective intelligence is something new that I don't, or it's just put another way. It's collective intelligence really is the team as a whole, the intellectual levels or the experience level, education levels of the team as a whole. So as we get ready to talk about that, I'd love to, as usual, I'd love to know your thoughts on what you think about this, and we can talk about it in coffee and communications, all right? So I'm looking forward to having these great discussions with you in coffee and conversation as you guys go through and watch these videos, YouTube videos, and come back to me and we can have this great, oh my gosh, it's gonna be awesome. I know, and it's been awesome before in other classes. So I know this is nothing but sensational. It's going to be sensational. So I look forward to hearing your discussions on it. So let's get started and on our discussions of chapter 6, team communication and collective intelligence. And again, I'm coming to you from a text. Our conversations are based around, or lectures based around, the book Making the Team, A Guide for Managers by Leah L. Thompson. So collaborations, Dr. Carroll, let's talk about this. Collaboration is the art and science of sharing and using knowledge. Well, guys, collective or collaborative problem solving requires that groups generate new information and make inferences that no individual group member could have inferred. So there are 3 types of inferences that we need to distinguish between as individual, shared, and collective. So uneven communication. The uneven communication problem refers to the fact that in almost every group, a handful of people do the majority of the talking. Have you been in those situations? I'm a talker. So yes, if you're in a group with me, I'm gonna do the talking if it's too silent. I need for people to speak up. And let's talk about it. And I love conversation. That's why I've named our weekly discussions Coffee and Conversation. So people who do the majority of the talking may not be the people who are the most informed about the problem. And that is so true. So distribution of participation as a focus group and size, and we see here based on Shaw, the group dynamics, this is psychology of a small group behavior. And if you'll notice, a lot of management centers around psychology. You'll see us infer or talk about or reference psychology a lot because many things are based on the mind and emotions and how people think and interact together. So Exhibit 6.1 kind of talks to us about the percentage of total speech acts based on the group size. So knowledge, specialization, sharing, and hiding. Wow. Compared to the group members with the shared expertise, members with unique expertise feel out of the loop, particularly when their expertise is given less weight in group discussions. So that's explicit knowledge. And what is explicit knowledge? And I know you kind of heard this from various people, but explicit knowledge is sharing between team members, leaves a little room for interpretation. So that's explicit knowledge. It means we're talking. This came from Marilyn, from Sally. We were right there together, and we're sharing that knowledge that we have that's based on facts that we have. And then that's tactic knowledge. Sharing between team members requires receivers to make a series of inferences. So, Yeah, maybe. I don't want to make inferences though. So I need to know. And then this knowledge hiding occurs when people conceal knowledge from others and triggers a distrusted loop. Yes, and that happens a lot because people will conceal information when they really shouldn't conceal information. We need to know if it's a part of the team and it's going to make the team work and be more collective and collaborative, we need to know. So transferring knowledge into solutions involves absorptive capacity. And so it's defined as a person's ability to transform new knowledge into usable knowledge. Absorptive capacity involves knowledge assessment, knowledge assimilation, and knowledge application. So those three, I can assess the information, I've assimilated, gotten into it, and now I'm applying it. Assess it, understand it, apply it. Same process for school. I assess the information that I'm given. I assimilate it, bring it together with new knowledge or existing knowledge I have, and I apply it in theory to everyday life or everyday work situations. All right. You agree? Yeah, I agree. I think so too. Inflammatory elaboration theory involves theory. This theory states that functionally diverse teams need to transform their breadth of knowledge, into actionable solutions. That information elaboration theory. So if I transfer the breadth of knowledge into actionable solutions, which is what we do when we're in college, we're gathering knowledge, more and more knowledge, and then we should be able to transfer that into solutions in our everyday life or our everyday work situation. It doesn't mean necessarily it's going to be as it was in school, because harder critical thinking involves us to be able to use what we have and apply it in various different ways. Experience community of practice, the extent to which a person's engaged with a given knowledge community, and that includes key indicators of involvement, open communication among members, a shared vocabulary, recall of previous lessons, learning from one another. This shared vocabulary happens to be a challenge in technology related areas when a technology team is familiar with one set of knowledge, whereas the mainstream of those not in technology is familiar with another set of vocabulary words or communication styles or language. And that's where we have some challenges from a technology perspective. So we have to make sure the language is playing with everyone. And if there's new words that we are providing examples or a glossary of terms when something is new. So knowledge becomes a strategic resource when managers engage in proactive scanning. What is proactive scanning? It's mindful, enriched research efforts or search efforts. And knowledge adaptation is the next thing. And it's challenging, changing, and expanding our knowledge. That's what we're doing when we're in college. We're challenging, changing, and expanding our knowledge. In the workplace, we're challenging, changing, and expanding our knowledge. We're proactively scanning the community, scanning the knowledge, scanning what's going on. And then knowledge augmentation is clever improvisational solutions to problems. And that's that critical thinking component as well to how we're looking at things and what we're assessing and coming back to. So adaptive capacity and monitoring. This is when a team's ability to adapt their strategy in the face of change and upheaval. There are two implicit coordination behaviors emerging within the teams working in high-risk environments, and they are team member monitoring and talking to the room. Now, what do you mean by talking to the room? Well, talking to the room is undirected talk to relay relevant information or comment on performance of real-time self-behaviors. Mental models are those models of representation of the world that allows people to really predict, understand, and solve problems in a given situation. So a team mental model is a common understanding that members of the group share about how things or some things works. And it develops through the process of team members sharing this information, specialized knowledge, skills, and abilities. They're sharing this information that they have. As I am sharing with you guys even though it's coming from a book, but I'm kind of bringing things together. And as you see other information, the bigger information from the course that I'm giving you, or you're working with me on, you're going to find additional things that's relevant and how we're bringing that information together. And hopefully I'm helping you to know how to bring things together as well. So teams with mental model perform better than teams that lack a cognitive foundation, thinking skills, critical thinking skills. All right. Reflective versus reflective, reflective versus reflective mental models. Reflective mental models are common understandings among members of a team that are formed through reasoning and deliberation, whereas reflective mental models are common understanding amongst members of a team that are more automatic, intuitive, and effective in nature. A team that has a large representative group has usually have inconsistent views about the definition of the team's problems or tasks, and the team members have different mental models about the task. So there's a difference in it. There's a gap between the two. So the greater the representational gap, the more the teams disagree about the task. So team members who are motivated to learn about other perspectives are more successful than those who are less motivated. And so Exhibit 6.2 in your book, and please make sure you're focusing on this one, is a model of cross-functional product team development, conflict, and performance. This is a very important model of art reflective of there. And I want you to pay close attention to that in the chapter, in the book in chapter 6, and look at that, because that is a one that will give you information a lot and more dynamics as you read the chapter about team discussion quality, transaction costs, outcome satisfaction, the relationship, the recurrence of conflict, and then team performance, innovativeness, timelines or timeliness, budget adherence, and productivity quality. And it talks about conflict management techniques, interests, rights, and power, and task characteristics, and how all of that intertwines to achieve the results we were trying to have in a cross-functional product development team. So accuracy and correspondence. The use of incorrect mental models can really, guys, result in inefficient or undesirable outcomes. I've seen this happen in projects that I've worked on where we have these inefficient and undesirable outcomes because communication really just was horrible. And we had an incorrect mental model of things, and people kind of thought the way they wanted to think about certain things. So effective teams adapt to external demands and anticipate other members' information needs because of shared team mental models. I want you to know the greater the overlap among team members' mental models, really the greater the likelihood that team members will predict the needs of the task and adapt to the changes and coordinate together successfully. And this is important that we do this. Now let's go on over to transactive memory system. And this is where it's a shared system of attending to, encoding, storing, processing, and retrieving information that we need to get to in order to give that, to trace back the transaction and talk about how things became as they are and what we want to do to change those things. So a TMS, or a transactive memory system, is a combination of two things: the knowledge possessed by a particular team members and awareness of who on the team knows what. People will hide this sometimes, and it prevents the team from really getting to the point where they need to. I have found that when I work on teams, or I'm managing a team or project, or whatever, I like to know what everyone knows. And so I take an assessment of that, as well as do interviews with people just to find out what they know, not to talk about what I expect, just kind of seeing what they know, how they see the big picture. Because within every team, there's a leader on the team in their own right. And I want to know what that person thinks as a leader at that moment of time when they're in my presence and they get to lead their conversation and lead their thought process with me. So team members instinctively expect the experts on the team to remember the details most closely associated with their area of expertise. And that's what I'm saying here. And having those meetings, I need for every person to come to me when I first get on the team to share with me what it is they know and how they're going to transact. And, believe it or not, it really creates a great start to our relationship together when I do task and take approaches and set aside situations like this where I can really talk to people and find out what's going on and how they think and see their world of work, or their world period, what's going on there. So centralized versus decentralized TMS is meta knowledge, or MK is the knowledge of who knows what amongst the team. The centralized MK meta knowledge is concentrated within one central member, and the decentralized meta knowledge is distributed evenly among team members. And then we have differentiated knowledge structures, which connect the locations of knowledge distributed across the team members. We also, along with differentiated knowledge structures, we have integrated knowledge structures that connect knowledge common to all team members and make members aware of any overlap, especially when you're doing a conversion. You want to see you have team here and team there next, and you're merging these two together doing the conversion. Team A and team B, you're merging them together. You really want to know where the overlaps in the information is, so that you guys can have discussions and kind of sort out things and make things more transparent. Converting a system is one thing, but converting systems and people and knowledge is another. So transactive memory systems, tactic coordination within those include the synchronization of members' actions based on assumptions about the others on the team that are what they're likely to do. So teams with a well-developed TMS or transactive memory system are better equipped to understand the unplanned loss of the team member. And teams with differentiated transactive memory system structures suffer more negative social emotional interactions and have lower cohesion and increased conflict among each other. So when you're developing a transactive memory system, some of the recommendations for team development and maximizing team performance include work planning. You want to do training. Example of training to work groups are in Exhibit 6.3, so you want to check that out. Teams that will work together should train together, and then stress reduction. So if I'm going to work together, I need to train together. And because inevitably in those particular situations, you're going to find out more information when individuals ask questions during that process. And so information dependence problem is part of the common information effect. And that includes information dependence is a term describing the fact that team members are dependent on one another for information. And that's so true. Even in your homes, at your churches, your businesses, wherever. We are dependent on each other for information because one person does not know everything. Remember that. We all bring something to the table. And what are we bringing? What knowledge are we bringing? What information are we bringing? And how do we marry those things together? So possible distributions of information are included on Exhibit 6.5. So please check that out too in your text. The common information effect refers to the main determinant of how much a given fact influences a group discussion. It's not the fact itself, but rather how many people, guys, happen to be aware of this fact prior to group discussions. And so teams often feel or fail to make a decision that would be supported if all members had full information of possible things. So this is Exhibit 6.5 and the 3 possible distributions of information. Check this out. Are you checking this out? You see this? Do you see how the distributed partial overlap is happening in this top diagram here I'm pointing to? And then down here is fully shared information and how it goes, A, B, C, D, E, F. Up here is, I know A, C, D, F, and she knows A, B, C, D, and this one knows A, B, C, E. It's a partial overlap. So this C is known by all 3, A is known by all C, D is only known by 2, F is only known by 1, and E is only known by 1. So there's an overlap there. And then here is fully shared because everybody knows the same thing. Non-overlapping is when each of them know different parts of the equation, there's no overlap of information between the three. Great diagram to kind of assess and put some labels when you're trying to decide what's known by whom and how you need to pull things together. All right. Hidden profiles is defined as a superior decision alternative. But the superiority of the choice is hidden from the group members because each individual member only has a portion of the information supporting this superior alternative choice. So you don't want these hidden profiles. You want to know what each person knows. So information known to only one or a few members will often be omitted from the group, right? So hidden profiles, here we go. This person here knows these three, and this one knows these, and they know different informations. And this one down here, number of dependents of pieces. Oh my gosh, it's all over the place. You see how we can go? And this is how things happen. Well, I thought they said so. Listen carefully. I see this a lot on projects where there's a merger of organizations, a merger of groups, a merger of just people from different companies, and they're coming together. Man, oh man, this is how things happen, and they cause a disruption. I was out last night just talking, taking a breather from all the videos I'm doing. I think this week alone, I'm doing maybe 60, 70 videos. Yes, that's a lot of information that I'm having to pull out of my head and make sure I have examples for it and pulling the stuff together. But in talking to, I was at a high profile establishment, and the guy was talking, he was in, and this place I go to, a lot of times there are board meetings happening there. There are this is a place where bad news a lot of times is given, or we are going to have to do some things because of this, and companies come to this place to meet. And it's often a place that I go to because it's a one where I kind of detox on my brain and kind of just take a boatload off by listening to others, and then being able to see how they're handling things as CEOs and executives of companies and how I need to handle it. I'm a part of a think tank, and we often get together to just kind of talk about various things and how we attack them, what we need to do. Sometimes I come away with a duty to, like I've come away with one duty I have to take care of. And it's amazing that all of it kind of intertwines with what I'm already doing. And sometimes I don't come away with anything. There's other people that come away with, hey, this is how we're going to do this. This is how we're going to progress and make some things happen for others. And we're not paid in this thing to do anything as being a part of it, but we rely on each other's brain power because we know different aspects of things to help us get to the next level or the next answer our problems or equations that we have out there. So ineffective strategies that do work for reducing the common information include increasing the amount of time spent in discussion, separating reviews and decisions, increasing the size of the team, increasing the information load, accountability, and pre-discussion polling. And this is a lot what I do in this think tank, excuse me. So effective interventions include the common information effect can be substantially reduced when leaders and teams actively use the following strategies. Leaders are more likely to ask questions and repeat unshared information. Redirect and maintain the discussion focus on unshared and unique information. So leaders have to be careful here. Approach the task as a problem to be solved and not judgment. Leaders, we got to stop judging and just use this as a way of understanding and resolving some challenges that may be a part of our team that's preventing success. Rank rather than choose. Consider decisions alternatives one at a time. Suspend initial judgment. Build trust and familiarity among team members. Team reflexivity. Remember that. We got to reflect. We got to reflect. Communicate confidence. Minimize status differences. Defensive versus offensive orientation, and use virtual learning. Now, group learning is our next topic. And talking about group learning, it involves the basic process of sharing knowledge, storing knowledge, and retrieving knowledge. Basic, basic, basic. Learning from the environment, learning from newcomers and rotators, learning from vicarious versus vivo experience, learning from threat, change, and failure, and then learning from action after action review. Action after action review is a term I became familiar with. My ex-spouse was in the military, and every time we had a problem at home, he was like, "Oh, let's do an action item review of what happened." I'm like, "Man, this is not the military," but it does work. And I started using it myself in some things. You don't see people talk about it openly like that anymore. We always come up with new names or words or terms to use. So routinization versus innovation trade-offs. Ooh, routine versus innovation. So certain behavior changes occur in teams that have worked together for more than 5 years. There's behavior stability, selective exposure, group homogeneity, and role differentiation. There's an overly routine team hinders communication and obstructs innovation. Over routine size team, it hinders communication and obstructs innovation. Now, may be desirable to design teams whose primary objective is to act as innovation experts for the creation and the transfer of organizations' best practices. So it could be used sometimes we got to watch it. So that's it. As we come to a close for this chapter, let's talk about what we learned through this chapter. For teams to be effective, we know that they need to have a shared knowledge base, right? We got that. You got to have a shared knowledge base, and we get that a lot through reflexivity. However, the shared knowledge base that governs a team is only as adequate as the team's communication system. So you got to build communication systems that help us to make sure that your team is communicating, or help you to understand how your team needs to communicate or not communicating. The natural biases in communication can be detrimental to effective teamwork, and a development of accurate team mental models and transactive memory systems can partially combat the threats of the common information effect in hidden profiles. So that's our chapter for this week. And again, I want to know your thoughts. I have to know your thoughts because these bring about good conversations. I hope I sparked some things in your mindset that said, you know what, I'm going to talk about that. And so as you listen to the video, I hope you can jot down a note or two, and I hope that you're able to come back to the table and let's have some awesome conversations around coffee and conversation. Take care.